Well, we're back. This is going to be a kind of a part two to the previous episode. In the previous episode, we talked about communication and dating in Japan and why foreigners maybe struggle. And we used Terrace House as an example because in the episode, the Italian guy gets kind of turned down from the Japanese girl. We kind of analyzed why that was the case, and maybe you could give some advice on how to better communicate and understand Japan, right? And so in this time, we're also using Terrace House as an example, but it's the next episode. It's become quite a foreign house, actually. But there's some good cultural communication differences that I noticed. And then when I pointed it out to Yuka, she thought, Subarashi, Brandon, that you could pick up on this. And it's not necessarily... It's kind of, we want to kind of analyze it and give our advice on how to better communicate in this culture, because I feel watching that the communication style used between the foreign, well, they're both foreign technically, but the one guy grew up in Japan, so he's pretty much Japanese. And reading the comments of what people thought really confirmed my idea of what I thought went wrong. And how the communication style from the West and the East doesn't really mix well. So we kind of wanted to talk about that, right? So, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I was like actually impressed that you realized that, cause I accepted Westerners do that, and I never thought I can be, close friend with them because it annoys me so much.
Okay, because it's completely opposite of how you communicate, or?
Personally, I don't do that.
Okay.
But some people do.
Yeah,
even
of course.
In Japan.
Yeah,
so
of
it's
course.
like different, but maybe like most of people don't.
But and I think that's learned from the people who communicate more of a foreign style, learn that from going abroad.
But I never do.
But I think like most Japanese people don't communicate in this way and are very turned off by the form of communication we're going to talk about. And I think it's one of the reasons foreigners struggle to build relationships in Japan, because even myself, it was kind of how I was brought up to communicate like this. So you don't really understand what's going wrong. So we're going to like break it down. Because I think it's important to form in relationships and dating and marriage and all that with the Japanese person. So yeah, let's start. So we're talking about the next episode where there's this character called Vivi-chan. We call her Vivi-chan, but they just call her Vivi, right? And she is having a conversation with another character called Tipis. Tipis-kun. And Tipis-kun's been drinking. And so Japanese people, to begin with, don't really express their opinion or their emotions unless they've been drinking. And in this case, Tipis was drinking. So he was quite drunk. So he actually brought up the conversation. But what I noticed was, during the course of the conversation, Vivi-chan was just kind of telling Tipis what he needed to do and what he should do, and really just giving advice. But she wasn't really listening to Tipis. She just kind of was waiting for him to finish so that she could tell him more about what she thought. So is that about right? And, she didn't, in my opinion, after living here, because I used to be like that, I used to think, people want my advice. They do not.
I mean, we appreciate advice.
Yes.
But if you really understand what's going on, so like sometimes like you just want to say it and then you don't really need advice. And you just want to other people to listen. That's all we need sometimes. So I guess when my friend get depressed
Mm-hmm.
or feeling sad, looking sad, I listen first what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they shared only partially, I don't really get what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really tell them what is good, what I feel. I just agree.
This is dirty, eh?
I just agree. So, but I realize through the conversation with Westerner,
Mm-hmm.
They have tendency, at least to me, I feel like they understand where I'm coming from, what situation I'm going through, or what I have been going through from a certain,
Small point of view.
part of me,
Mm.
and then giving me coaching or giving me advice. And that actually annoyed me so much.
Mm.
That happened to me quite often
With foreigners.
with foreigners.
Especially from Western countries, I'm
Yes,
sure.
especially from Northwest,
North America.
North America.
Mm.
I'm not really sure about European because I had some friends from Europe.
Mm.
They are more in between, a little bit closer to Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
They listen more, and then they know the kind of timing when is the best to give the advice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or agree, giving a
Coaching. They know when to say something and when to listen, right?
But I had several friends, when I was sharing how hard my life in America, I just shared my, depressed feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then right away, he or she gave the advice.
Without understanding the whole situation.
Yeah. So after I shared that kind of stuff with this particular people, I learned, okay, so these people not gonna understand. So there is my bad to share that kind of stuff with them. And then I decided I will never bring up this kind of topic with these people ever
Again.
again.
See, I'm going to stop here because I think this is important. Because this is kind of... Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens on Terrace House because we don't know what's going to happen. But
in this case, he was drunk, so there is a highly possibility he doesn't remember anything.
that's true. But let's pretend he does remember. But we don't know what's going to happen. But I think this is very important, which what she said is in Terrace House, Bibi-chan... constantly gives her advice, doesn't really listen, or in a way that's understanding. She doesn't try to understand where Tipis has come from, his upbringing. She only understands from her point of view, which is like this.
So maybe we can tell what the Chupas was telling Bibi-chan.
Okay, but first I want to finish my thought.
Okay.
So she's just giving him advice, and so on a general level, if, to a Japanese person, and I've done this. I've made this mistake. Yuka can confirm that this is one of the reasons it probably almost our relationship didn't work out. I understand it now, but it took a long time. But when Yuka said she did this, told her feelings to her friends, and they didn't really try to dig deeper, and they didn't ask questions, and they didn't try to understand the whole situation. Maybe the situation goes all the way back to her childhood, but they would have never know that because they didn't take the time to kind of, discover the whole situation and be a detective. You kind of have to be a detective.
In Japan, especially because we don't share a lot of stuff, so we have to be pretty good at leading people.
That's right. So you have to learn to ask the right questions and stuff. And in this case, Bibi-chan unfortunately didn't do this. And so if this Tipis is a typical Japanese person, he's never going to share anything with her again. As far as he's concerned, she is, in Japanese, they say uzai, which is annoying or lame and not worth the time to share with, because she's kind of selfish in the sense that she doesn't really care about him.
He thinks.
She only cares about what she thinks and giving her advice. And this is the key point I want to like focus on, because that's very important. If you're not willing to take the time to go deeper in your relationship with a Japanese person and listen more than you speak and ask questions rather than give advice, you're not going to get very far. You may have superficial relationships where you have your hobby friends and you go do your hobby, but you're never going to go deeper, and you're never going to have those conversations that really build a friendship and a relationship.
Right, because it's very important to talk about your feeling or your suffering or horrible experience sometimes. And then if Japanese friend decide, okay, like you are not gonna be able to understand anyway, and that's it. So you will never be able to get to know this person ever. So of course you can't really have a true relationship.
So we don't know what's going to happen on Terrace House, because the next episodes and few episodes aren't out yet by the time we have this up. But if this is a typical Japanese relationship, chances are distance has been now built. And the wall is up now because of this exact situation. I think most Japanese people at first don't have a wall up. I mean, everyone has a little wall up, but for like something like this, this is where they get built. Especially with foreigners, it's just like, this person is too much for me. They don't know me. Who are they to tell me what I need to do?
Makes us so tired.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, Yuka watched me and my parents. My parents were up here a couple months ago. And my parents are very much in this kind of Vivi-chan kind of communication, and she watched me with them. But this time I had learned more Japanese styles. So I'm kind of more at the point now too, where if they're not going to understand me, I'm just going to kind of let it go and not bring it up with them, because it's kind of hard on my feelings that they're not going to take the time to understand it, and we all do this. I do it. I probably do this to them too, to some extent. So I'm just as guilty, but living in Japan, I've learned to kind of pick and choose what I share with certain people.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Like Yuka could tell you stories about me being uzai to her.
Yeah, you used to do that often. Like before you dig deeper what's going on with my situation, if I share something, you focus on what I just shared, and then you started to give me like a coaching or advice. But I don't need your coaching. I don't need your advice. Like, you don't know whole situation yet. And then like the how to approach is also different. Like when you give the coaching or advice, you are more like determined what to say, and then whatever you say is with your own confidence, right? So how you deliver the word can be very strong. But if you change the approach when you give me coaching or advice, it could be different story.
I agree.
But like I understand like where you guys coming from, because you want to support,
yes,
or you want to help others.
Yeah, it's not right. Out of like malice or
like
anything. It's out of our good heart. Like we really want to help.
Yeah.
My parents included, they really want to help.
But like for us, like before you want to help us, like don't jump into the small part of the conversation and then you decide what's the best for this.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a quote I heard a long time ago. I can't remember who said it. Maybe many people said it. I don't remember. But it was, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you love them or care about them. And what that means in this situation is that if they don't, maybe your advice is right, but it doesn't matter because you haven't taken the time to show you care about the person. And that's what you need to do with Japanese people, I think, right? In the West, you can kind of just give your advice and people will accept it. Now I've kind of turned more Japanese, so I kind of have the mentality now where I kind of want people to know me and dig a little deep before I can kind of accept advice.
Yeah, of course, like for me personally, I don't want to listen to any advice from a person who barely know me. I don't really know, or I want to have like I always like appreciate advice from someone I can agree with or I can respect.
Yeah.
Or like some kind of bonding.
Yes.
Like if
trust that, and there's
trust
trust there, right?
If I don't have any like trust or any point I can respect about, I don't wanna take any advice.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very annoying. Like, how dare you to think you know everything about me?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Like, it's kind of an arrogant point of view, right? Like, you think your advice is perfect for the situation, and it covers all situations, even though you haven't really put much thought into all the other situations, which in actual reality I do think is arrogant. And I'm guilty of having a kind of arrogant point of view like that. So I do think you have to humble yourself and understand the whole situation. And that's a simple humbling, right? Like, you take the time to say, hey, tell me about it more, or where does this come from? Because really, like, not caring about it and not taking the time is arrogant, because you're saying my time is worth more than your time. Here's the advice. You should take it. That is just unbelievably arrogant in my opinion.
And then plus, like, we Japanese don't get used to do like argument or debate even.
That's right.
So if the person who tried to coach you or advise at the wrong timing, how they deliver the word is kind of debating, or argumentative. So we don't like it.
No,
it makes us very tired. And then like but maybe like this is considered as superficial, but we just pretend, okay, thank you so much for your advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we just like pretend we appreciate that advice, and then we never share the feeling with this person.
Yeah, I see that. And that's
and
why
then like probably like these people think, oh, Japanese people are very superficial. Like maybe like
I don't know
or
what
like
that.
once like these Japanese like open their heart, and then we thought we get to close each other.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah,
first.
but why like they disappeared all of a sudden?
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think like to me, Japanese people are very good at pretending, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing all the time. I understand why you do it now after living here for a while, but sorry, I think that's exactly what happens is people like me who give the advice, like, oh, she really listened to my advice. Oh, I helped, and we're so much closer now. When actual reality is like
you used to do that.
Yeah,
often.
you think you're like you think you're moving like this, but really this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? And like it's like a huge gap and huge distance is created because you're uzai. You didn't
annoying.
take the correct path. So that's why my hope with Bibi-chan is I hope this is a learning thing for her. I hope she can watch this back. Like we look at one of the other characters who was Japanese, the young guy, Luca. He was like a sponge. He's young. And so he was kind of, I guess, in my opinion, he was majorly naive, not the smartest guy out there, but he was pretty humble. And he was willing to learn, and so he watched back the tapes and he's like, I don't want to be like this, and he made active efforts to kind of grow himself, even though they seem like small steps of growth. For him they were major steps of growth, because his whole life people done everything from him because essentially he was so pretty, but he didn't want to rely on that. He wanted to do, and so I hope Bibi-chan can kind of watch this back, read the comments and not be hurt by them, but kind of take in the comments from the Japanese people and say, hey, am I being uzai? Am I not trying to understand the whole situation? Yes, maybe I still think my advice is right, but maybe my delivery needs to change a little bit for them to accept my advice. And I think really that's what it is. I don't think anything she said is too controversial. I don't think it's incorrect. But I think her method of communication is what destroyed it, and maybe even destroyed a relationship unwittingly. Like, it's kind of bad. I wish Japanese people were a bit more, relaxed about it, because like she really wanted to help, and she was really trying her best for what she knew how, but she doesn't know how to communicate properly. In Japan with this kind of situation. I'm not going to talk about other situations, maybe she knows, but in this particular situation, she didn't know how to communicate. And she has now maybe destroyed a relationship and created distance. Maybe not, I hope not, but I hope she can learn from it and see, oh, maybe I did this with other people and this is why.
It's very difficult, Brandon, because like it comes up, go back to education style too, because in the West, you guys are taught to, learn how to debate, how to, have a, I don't know, like, debate. But our education never teach you how to debate. So it's completely opposite, like, alien is talking to us in alien language. Or alien try to fit in Earth. So I was amazed that you even realized about this, point. But
it took a long time.
Most of the people can't, and then I don't think it's necessary for all of them to realize and then adjust, but like it's gonna help living in Japan to make a friend in Japan.
I think so. And I think this is the number one reason people in Japan, foreigners in Japan, fail in Japan, is they don't understand the communication style. Like one little thing like this, unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like this, but it is, will destroy a relationship. You will never become closer with that person. Hopefully, because Tipis, he isn't technically Japanese.
And then like
they can recover, and he was drunk because of it, and he doesn't remember, or they can come together because it's a show. But in most cases, you're gonna have a distance. You're gonna be like, where'd that my friend go? But you were never friends. You were never friends, or if you were, you destroyed it at that point, unfortunately. You can recover. I think you could. How would you recover from something like that? Say like Bibi-chan realizes her communication was bad. She realizes what she needs to do.
She has to show it from the action.
Okay.
She doesn't really have to talk about it. But like building up a trust, or it's taking time, right? Takes time.
Yeah.
So if you realize it, you want to show through the action.
But you can recover.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So not in all cases, I guess it's not completely destroyed.
But it takes time. It takes time, and you have to really. This person have to really be ready to receive. your action. But if both of them willing to receive and then give, it will work out. And then eventually he or she can understand, or maybe like how to deliver was bit, misunderstood each other. But like she or he did it for us.
Yep.
For me, if you can realize it, like it can be fixed, but it takes time, and then you need to build up the trust.
Yes, I agree. I think like even it's still something I struggle with, this kind of communication, even though I'm aware of it. Implementing it is still difficult. Like asking the right questions and not wanting to give advice. Like even if you want to give it, it's take a step back and not deliver your advice. That's difficult for a foreigner like myself. I mean, you saw how I grew up with my dad, right? Like,
I mean, like you can give the advice, but you have to know when is the right timing.
well, that's what I mean. Like you have to like. Most foreigners, like BB-chan and myself, our initial kind of
you get to know person first. Like if you
okay,
don't
but that's not what I'm talking about. Like our initial instinct, that's sort of like our initial instinct is to give advice right away without taking in the information. So we need to learn when's appropriate, and that's difficult because you're instinctually, you were brought up a certain way. Instinctually, you want to do it, so it's almost automatic. So you have to train your brain to kind of recognize the situation and train yourself to keep your mouth shut and ask a different question, or even ask a question and not give a statement. And that's the hardest part, because even once the hardest part is recognizing it. Once you recognize it, stopping yourself is the next difficult part in the beginning. I think I'm getting better at it, but I still have a tendency to speak first without understanding the whole situation. So sorry, you have to deal with me.
Ma, you changed a lot.
But it's still difficult, right? And even in our relationship, doing that built a wall.
But so like whenever I say something, you decide what I'm gonna say, right?
Yeah.
And then like I always tell you, like listen to the end of the sentence, please, and then understand the whole situation, or understand where I'm coming from, and then you can decide what is going on. But before you get to know the detail, you can't decide.
That's my own struggle. I don't think that's necessarily a foreign struggle. I think that's just a Brandon struggle.
You think?
To be like, yeah, I know.
You think?
I have no idea. I haven't observed that in the wild. I've only observed it through you yelling at me, even today. Let me finish. Maybe I jumped to conclusions too quickly, which is I think I've gotten better recently, but it's still a struggle. But it's the same kind of thinking.
And then plus, like personally, I really didn't like the fact after you gave me coaching or advice, like I can smell, I did great coaching, or I gave really good advice, and then that conversation made our distance very close, and then I feel very good about us, about myself giving this kind of advice, right? So
No?
I that's kind of like confidence I want to crush. No, I'm not asking you a question like advice or coaching, like, and then you did it for yourself to feel good about yourself. Personally, I always felt so whenever people do that to me. For me, actually, but it's just cultural difference. Like I knew their intention is like trying to help me or supporting me and stuff. But like I, from where I'm coming from, it's But you don't know me,
Well, I mean,
or
it's
you
just
don't
like-
know this situation, and but at the same time, like it must be very very hard to Japanese people who never lived in Northwest.
Or outside Japan.
North
America.
what? North America. Because even like I went through often with North Americans, but still I don't like it, and then still I create a wall right after I just like these people try to give me coaching.
Yeah.
At the timing I don't even ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it now. I mean,
So most like Japanese people don't really get used to this kind of stuff. Even me supposedly got used to this kind of stuff, but still
it bothers you.
bothers me so much. And then I'm like, I decide I'm gonna talk about with you about only food.
Okay,
from
so
now on.
so in that episode,
I'm not gonna talk about something important with you anymore.
Okay, so in that episode, then did that bother you? The way, like watching someone else do it. It's not being done to you. Just watching another foreigner tell kind of a Japanese person that kind of communication style, like watching that communication. Does it bother you? Because I mean, we read the comment and it bothered some Japanese people. I mean, some Japanese people really liked the advice she gave, but there was quite a bit. Would you say?
I think like the comment, positive comment about that scene, they can say it because they are not in that situation.
Okay.
If they are in that situation, 90% of people hate that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah,
and
but
I think
like,
you
know,
didn't.
from, like,
Sorry, but you didn't have a problem with that situation. I'm like, well, let's rewatch it because I think it's important, and you still didn't get it until I had to like pause and point it out, and then you're like, hey,
because like I Japanese are good at separating yourself from the situation if you are not in, and then like I saw like that kind of debate is kind of attacking to this person, Tipis, but I'm not the Tipis, so I don't really care. He should receive it and he should take care of it, and then I'm just a third person to watch it, observe it. But if I'm a Tipis in that situation, I build up the wall right away from BB if I'm not drunk,
Maybe if you are drunk, but maybe not.
And then I didn't like, but watching through TV doesn't really bothers me. And plus, like after all those like commentary people made a comment, wow, Bibi-chan said really nice advice for him. That kind of stuff kind of like gave her point, extra point to make her look good.
Yeah.
But again, this is just a TV show, a little bit set up TV show. So like maybe Bibi-chan's agency ask TV production to make her look better, right?
Well, I don't know, but because like I think when we went on we did our research. We went to the internet and we saw positive Twitter comments, and then we saw negative Twitter comments, and the negative were kind of in line with what we talk about. And I think you just made the perfect point: is the people who gave positive feedback on this are kind of being idealistic and removing themselves from the situation.
Yeah.
They're not putting themselves in that situation, just like Yuka did. And then when we went back and we watched it, I'm like, because I was curious, because I was like, I don't think a Japanese person would want to be in this situation. And she's like, nah, it's fine. We're wasn't like that. But, she didn't see a problem with it. And then we went back and she put herself in that situation. And then all of a sudden everything changed, right? So I had to really validate myself that I had learned this, because it's kind of the first time she kind of understands that I've learned this as well. But yeah, it's interesting. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Is there anything else about this particular topic?
まあ
I mean, it's complicated. It's communication. So, I mean, it's hard to communicate in your own culture, let alone being in someone else's, right? So I give credit to foreigners on that show, speaking great Japanese. You know,
Do you
hopefully...
think like Bibi felt good about herself after she gave him
Oh, 100%.
advice?
100%.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's kind of stuff I say arrogant.
But we don't really
How
know.
dare you to think that advice works best for this person?
But she might, I mean, we don't know. My guess on how the conversation is going to follow after, she's going to go talk with the other character, Hannah, and she's going to be like, I can't believe he thinks like this. He needs to learn to love himself, and like that was what it was about, and do this before he can love somebody else. And she's going to think, the arrogant part, I think, is going to come in that she's trying to justify that she's right. Like that she did a good job giving this advice. She's going to seek validation.
I don't think she's gonna do it. I don't think so.
I think they'll talk about it with Hannah in their room, and she's just going to want to, whether they show that or not.
But you never know, like her situation and then his situation can be so different.
Well, they're completely different.
Right. And he probably, like, I don't know what the Tipis character went through in the past, but I can easily imagine, like, he came to Japan from Philippines when he was young, and then he grew up, single mom. I don't know what happened, and maybe first, like, he couldn't speak Japanese, looked different, and then he came to Aichi Prefecture, which is not a big city at all. So maybe he was bullied so many times. He had like least confidence in himself. Living most of the time alone. Maybe like he got abused. You never
We don't know.
Yeah, you never know. So like
that's why you need to.
Yeah, that's why like at that point you can't really say, oh, you have like just because you feel like you didn't get the love from your parents, don't ever say you can't love others.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what happened, and then plus like the relationship with parents in the West and in East are completely different.
Yes.
So the parents have, we believe, more responsibility how kids become.
Yes.
Right? And then like probably like let's say like if I have a horrible parents, maybe I would blame on my parents. Oh, I became like this because you guys are divorced. I was always alone. That kind of stuff, right? So that kind of concept also we have to understand. Like family structure in the West and in East are pretty different. So
but I think that comes back to like going back to the basic thing of listening and being a detective to get to know the whole situation, to give the right advice. Because maybe your advice is correct, but you're not the person that can deliver it, and it will be received. Maybe somebody else has to deliver the same advice because they'll receive it from somebody else.
Right.
Maybe even the state, him being drunk, probably not the best time to give advice because they're not going to remember it.
Yeah, so
like you know what I mean. You got to think there's these certain level and layers you have to think about, just like mental state. Like, is he going to receive this information? Am I the person who can do it? Even though it's right. Let's say you know it's right, but it doesn't matter if they're not going to receive it. And so living in Japan has really taught me that.
Yeah, so I personally like extra careful what I give as advice, because like it's easily hurt others' feeling and then like cause misunderstanding. So whenever like I hear that kind of stuff from my friends or from someone I barely know, what I do is like listening first, and then I will think before I say something. like is she or he ready to listen something at this moment, or what she want to or he want to listen at this moment. Maybe they just want to have a body to, listen their story, or just be there being quiet. So, observation, listening is the key.
I think
especially that kind of a situation.
I think that's a good thing to leave it on. Listening is key. I think foreigners from North America don't listen very well, in my opinion. And there are lots that do, don't get me wrong. But I think our culture kind of demands us to be clever with what we say, because we're always being bombarded with things to kind of where we have to kind of prove ourselves, which I think is a bit different in Japan. So there's reasons behind it. Probably I'm not articulating it very well, but I think in Japan, listening will take you a lot farther.
And then plus, remember, I always tells you, I don't need your speech, I don't need your words.
No, she does.
Just to show me through your action.
Yes.
So in Japan, I would say, your speech doesn't really matter. Whatever you say, it doesn't really matter. Show us through your action.
Yeah. Show us the evidence. Great. Well, thanks for coming out today. I think that's great. Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.